they couldn't get very much sugar, so the farmers all would buy 4, 5 to 10 hives all over in southeastern Minnesota here. And when the war was over and they could get sugar again, the bees were just kind of abandoned. And it became a real problem because they were all full of American foul brood. And it was very hard to keep bees without ending up with American foul brood, because in the spring and in the fall, your bees would be in there robbing out of those hives. And so that's one thing that changed. And the bee inspectors came around and really canvassed the areas. They would go to the post office and find out who's getting bee equipment, or they could legally do that then. They would go to the sheriff's department. Where have you seen bees? I was with the bee inspector, so that's how I know all of this stuff. And they burned a lot of hives. However, here and there would be a hive that, amongst all of these hives, that didn't have any American foul brood. They were hygienic. We just didn't know that. There was no control for American foul brood other than to burn it. And then in about 1951 or 52, terramycin became available, and that worked really well. I never used it on all the I only used it if I saw signs of foul brood starting in a hive. The spraying was a big problem, especially with the canning companies. The farmers, what they sprayed at that time, they didn't do a lot of spraying for it, in fact, but the canning companies sprayed indiscriminately. And what I would do is in the winter, about January, February, I would go with my maps over all my colonies, where my bee yards were, and we would sit down and they would plant the early corn, the early peas around those areas, or lots of times they late lima beans, and it really helped. I had very little problems after I started doing that, because they didn't want to get out there the information out that they were killing a lot of bees. But there are other people that didn't do that, and they really had a lot of problems.
Well, I can remember when we first got married, and that because Denny had been in the service, he didn't have any bees just before then. And so he decided to start up again with his colonies. And so he was going around every place he could find used bee equipment and buying up equipment every which way and making sure that he didn't have any diseases or anything. But that's how he started out. You can't do that now, because it's just not possible. There's too much foul brood that's, I can't think of the word, that you can't treat. It'll just take over. I also remember that he used to get packages from down south, and I think we were paying like $5 and $6 a package at that time. A couple dollars for a queen. I remember him ordering queens through the post office, and they'd call us at 3 in the morning and say, "Your bees are here, come get them." And so it was kind of an interesting time. We used to have queens in the house pretty often. You'd hear them piping, and they'd be sitting there waiting for them to get out into the hives. So it has changed a lot over the years.
By the way, those queens would come in what they call it'd be like a package of bees. There'd probably be a pound of bees in there, and maybe 100 to 200 queens, and that's how they ship them. And they seem to just roar a lot when they had all those queens in there, so that really scared the post office people, so they wanted to get rid of them right away. But one of the things that's probably changed, that I've seen has changed the most, is the mites and how they have changed beekeeping. There's basically 7, there's more viruses in this, but there's basically 7 of them that are kind of pretty, affect the bees quite a bit. And we never really had much trouble with the viruses. Once in a great while you'd see the the wing virus, the virus that attacked the wings, but we just didn't see it. And we didn't see it with the tracheal mites either. But we did see it with the varroa mite, because the varroa mite pokes a hole in the bee's body, and that's how the viruses get in there. And so that has changed beekeeping enormously. You can't keep bees if you don't control the varroa mites.
Gene, did you have something? Nope. We've been kind of talking on pests, so let's skip to the back page, and there's pests. So just to ask a real quick question, what's worse, foul brood then or the varroa today?
The varroa today. We could control the American foul brood if you really worked at it and knew what to look for and how to do it. But the varroa that's really tough.
So is that just one answer from 6 beekeepers?
One thing though is, I've only been keeping bees, I'm the young guy here by the way. I've only been keeping bees 14, 15 years, and I have never seen foul brood in any of my hives. But I have seen a lot of varroa.
So one of the questions is, and you just be brief on this too, but what are your thoughts about the varroa mite? But I think we know that, but possible treatments. What is the most effective treatment that you have found over the years?
Oxalic acid, dribble, and
With a spray station.
Surely it says steam. It's not steam. You put it in and there's a heating device and it vaporizes it in the hive.
Anybody else with treatment for the varroa? Oxalic acid.
We started using that in 1995.
I think I know the answer to this one too, but just another quick, or did you have a comment?
I don't know really where to go with it. There was one other one that was that worked better than Oxalic, but it worked too well. It contaminates your equipment. I can't even say the name of it right now. No, not formic. Not the acid. It was the white strip that we used to get. Kumafos. That killed everything in your hives but your bees, and then eventually did that too because the brood got contaminated there.
Oh, I could speak to that too. You know, we first started out with Apistan. That seemed to work pretty good, and then that, you know, tapered off, and Comafos came along, and that was really effective as far as getting rid of the mites, but it also affected the queens, and they weren't laying the eggs. So now you had a low population. So it didn't work. So I got to the point there, I kind of quit using anything. And I don't try to winter them. I just get new packages every year, clean out the frames, you know, and make sure you don't have any foul brood. Any suspect, get rid of it. And this year was one of the better years I've had for a long time.
One of the problems with the miticides that we've tried to use, they're good for about 3 to 4 years. But the first time you treat, you'll probably kill 98% of the mites, but that 2% are resistant, and that's your breeding stock. And they reproduce really fast, so in about 3 years, stuff won't work very good. That's why the oxalic acid, I think eventually they will become, the mites will become immune to that too. What oxalic acid does is it attacks the outer shell of the bee. And I think that we're going to end up with mites that have a harder, less penetrable outer shell. And then that won't work anymore.
Kind of sticking with the theme about the pests, can I save money using old equipment? And think about the spread of disease. And think about it today. We know in the past, right after World War II, we had a lot of problems with foul brood. But today, can I save money by using old equipment, buying old equipment?
If you're starting out with bees, I would suggest you start out with brand new equipment and watch those bees build out that comb. And don't be afraid to open them up and look at them every week. It won't hurt them. But do use a little smoke and don't bang them and stuff like that. But starting out with used equipment, if you've never had bees before, unless you've got somebody that can help you that really knows and knows what to look for.
As far as used equipment, I've mentored a fair number of people. There was a group down in south of St. Charles I helped. And I would not let them have any of my used equipment because no matter what goes wrong, it's due to that used equipment. So you can't stand the pain.
And with all that said, I don't think there's anything wrong with used equipment. You might want to, if you're a new beekeeper, you might want to get a second opinion, takes an experienced beekeeper with you. But I think you can just tell by looking at the equipment. You can tell by looking at the comb, how old it is, and whether that's comb that you'd want to lay in if you were a queen. You know, if it's all straight and clean and it looks good, and the same way with the woodenware. I don't think there's anything wrong with used equipment. Of course, you can get some disease and whatnot with that, but we've all bought and sold used equipment, and I don't think any of us are afraid of buying, maybe selling used equipment because then you get blamed for everything. But we've all bought and sold used equipment. It's not like if you have a beekeeper, your uncle or somebody getting out of beekeeping, 88 years old and wants to give you their equipment, that you should shy away from that. I don't think. Denny?
One of the things to watch on used equipment is how much miticide has been used with that equipment, because most of the miticides are absorbed by the wax in the hive. It's just like a sponge. And it doesn't release it, but it will affect, that's one reason why we have a really hard time raising good queens. That wax is so contaminated. And if you're going to raise queens, you want to use brand new combs anyway. And so I'd be careful of the combs for that reason. And I really recommend, if you're using any miticides at all, that you change those combs about every 5 or 6 years. You change them out. At least that, I wouldn't go on any longer than that.
I'm going to have to defend the other side, partially because I am in the business of it. I do sell nukes, and I sell quite a few every year. And with the nuke, you get 5 frames of old equipment, mostly old, because I do rotate queens or equipment out. I have already admitted I have a queen problem, and I agree that it can be. But I don't know really where to go with it, because I don't think it's the comb that's hurting the queen bee. I think it's chemicals that we're putting on the fields out there. And I was raised on a dairy farm. Would I be using the chemicals that they're putting on the seeds today if I was only a farmer? You bet I would. But I'm also scared to death of all that stuff. I've been trying to get all our researchers, and I know a lot of them, to check the ponds in our area that's got full of water and check the dirt in those ponds. Can I get them? No. And I can tell you the reason why. It's this guy out in California is kind of giving us an example of that they're talking about molesting all these actors and actresses. They're all scared of him. They're scared of the chemical companies. If they know and can prove it, will they do something about it? Yes, I got chemicals in my hives, and I've used chemicals forever because I cannot tolerate the parasites that they have. I say we have a problem with bees because of parasites, pesticides, politics, lack of pasture, and pride because we don't talk about these issues. I've had people tell me at big bee meetings, the national ones, you're a lousy beekeeper if you lose in bees. Well, I think everybody's a lousy beekeeper then, because they're not talking about or telling us the truth. The biggest place The biggest helpers I've had sometimes